My name is Corporal Jack Wall, of the Royal Army Medical Corps. I had just finished breakfast and had come up on deck. I sat down on the hatchway while one of our chaplains, with his map out, was showing us different places of interest on the nearby shorelines.
When Britanic hit one of the contact fuses on the mine detonated. The resulting explosion created an expanding gas bubble, lifting Britannic's bow with it. It twisted Britannic's hull a bit, slightly warped her frame, which resulted in the watertight doors in boiler rooms 6 and 5 He wasn't aware at that point that the forward doors were jammed in the open position. He ordered the engines to stop and the lifeboats to be swung out and readied for low.
The ship begins to lose control as the helmsman reports steering failure. For one reason or another, the steering gear no longer responds. The captain tries to use the propellers to steer the ship, using higher power on the port side that would turn the ship slowly to starboard, towards Kia.
I snatched up my coat, rug and life belt and commenced along the long corridor to the wards to see if help was needed with the patients. It was a terrible sight. Men who could barely walk struggling to climb the stairs, the screams and shouts.
My name is Henry Pip. I'm a 15-year-old Sea Scout. There wasn't any excitement, as everyone knew their boat stations and went to them without stopping to look for their kits. The Sea Scouts on the lifts worked them for as long as they could, but the ship soon listed so much to starboard that they had to give up and go up to the boats.
I lowered 2 of them down to about 6 feet above the waterline. In spite of the curses of the men in the boats, I kept them there until definite orders from the bridge to launch the boats. 5th Officer Gordon Fielding.
When under Miss Dowse, the matron, they lined up on deck like so many soldiers, and unconcernedly and calmly waited their turn to enter the boats. We men are proud of them, and we can only hope England will hear of their courage. They were magnificent.
He was somewhat excited and urgent.
The second alarm was sounded and Captain Bartlett told me to go and get into my boat. I walked along the boat deck to my boat and the first officer told me to get into the motor launch, which was soon being lowered. I got in, and in doing so my foot got jammed between the side of the ship and the motor launch.
I filled the motor launch with 30 Royal Army Medical Corps and 2 or 3 sailors and launched it under the charge of the first officer.
My boat was lowered to the water. 4 oars and 4 men to each oar. We pulled for our lives to clear the suction. While pulling away, something hit me on my left eye, but did not take much notice at the time. Blood began running down my face. After we got clear of the danger of the ship, we started to rescue our comrades that was in the water. We had no one to man our boats, so we carried on ourselves. We had pulled one out of the water and given him treatment. We saw another that was nearly dead, so we pulled towards him.
The Britannic was now very badly listing to starboard, and we were on the high side. We had much difficulty in getting this boat away. She nearly capsized a few times before she cleared the ship. It was now impossible to launch any more boats from the port side.
The ship seemed to stop settling a little. She gave me hope that she had stabilized herself. I passed word to stop lowering the boats as we again attempted to work the ship towards land.
At this point, I had about 6 sailors and 30 RAMCs who were sat in the next boat calmly waiting for me to put them into the water during the launching. Once the boat was in the water, the 2 men and I slithered ourselves down the rope and into the lifeboat.
The forward motion of the ship only dug the bow deeper underwater. Water was reported to be flooding the vessel at a record rate, so the captain ordered Britannic to stop for one final time.
I gave the order for all to leave the ship, passing word to the engine room and blowing the whistle for the last alarm, the abandoned ship signal. 2 long blasts of the whistle.
She seemed just like a pitiful, dumb animal tortured, her sirens blasting for help up to the very last.
Now almost to the blades, so I jumped into the sea as well. The blades were beating the boats down.
It was spread like a bushfire on the veldt. I sat there, emotionless. For what emotion could I have expressed if not fear or sorrow? Nurse Matron Miss Elizabeth Ann Dowse
Came to the bridge. Assistant Commander Dyke having reported to me that all had left the ship, I told him to leave, and shortly after I followed him. We barely left the bridge, walking into the water by the forward boat gantry on the starboard side. The funnels fell just moments later.
One of the quartermasters had gone below early in the sinking to find supplies of bread from the ship's pantries to stock the lifeboats. He came out onto the deck to find the bridge submerged and the ship rapidly dropping in the water. He dropped the bread and leapt into the sea with mere seconds to spare before the vessel had disappeared.
When we reached the deck, the foremost of the 4 funnels was touching the water, and the bows were completely submerged. We jumped 80 feet into the sea from the second-class quarters on sea deck, and after swimming clear, we watched the awesome sight of the mighty liner sinking. Assistant Chief Engineer, Joseph Wolfe.
It was indeed sad to watch our ship, slowly but surely sinking. We could hear her boilers rumbling off like thunder into the water, and her immense funnels, through which one could have driven a coach and 4, were ripped up with as little difficulty as tearing a piece of paper.
As she s-
I had supervised over the construction and launch of the Britannic. I skippered her, and I watched her founder.